In 2008, deep inside Siberia's Denisova cave, archaeologists pulled a tiny fragment of bone from the soil. When they unearthed this bone, they didn't expect much. Maybe a Neanderthal scrap, or perhaps a modern human. But they were so wrong. When geneticists sequenced the DNA, they froze. This wasn't Neanderthal. It wasn't Homo sapiens either. It was something else entirely. A new kind of human that no one had ever seen before. That little bone belonged to a young girl who lived about 50,000 years ago, and it was found in no other place than a cave known as the Denisovan cave. Because of how strange this bone was, scientists realized that there could be more from where that came, so they called her kind the Denisovans. Suddenly, our neat family tree of us and the Neanderthals exploded into chaos. Why not? There was now proof that another human species had walked the earth alongside us. Not just that, there was a fat chance that they were equally sophisticated and powerful. And yet, despite the staggering evidence, there is no mention of them in our history books. If you've never heard of the Denisovans before, you're far from alone. The shocking part: more testing has proved that their DNA is everywhere. Studies propose that modern people from Tibet, Mongolia, Papua New Guinea, and Australia may carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA in their blood. That's not a minor detail. That's a full-blown lineage, an entire species that no longer exists, except inside us. And here's the kicker. While Neanderthals left dozens of skeletons, Denisovans left almost nothing. A pinky bone, a few molars, a jawbone high on the Tibetan plateau, a possible skull in China. That's it. Yet somehow they contributed massively to our genome. So how does a species powerful enough to rewire our DNA leave no trace in the dirt? Did we erase them, or did they erase themselves? In 2010, the news of the Denisovans hit the world, and with its release, it rattled anthropology to its core. Imagine scientists coming to announce that they missed a previously unknown group of hominins. For decades, the story was simple. Humans evolved in Africa, Neanderthals lived in Europe, and the two occasionally crossed paths. Clean, neat. But the Denisovans ruined that neatness. From the finger bone found in Denisovan Cave, Siberia, a new mitochondrial DNA was uncovered. Suddenly, there wasn't just one lost cousin. There was another hiding in plain sight. Even worse, this lost and found breed was just as influential. To top the news, the Denisovans were not a fringe group. They were global players. Since their DNA was found in more than one place, they most likely shaped the immune systems, bodies, and even the minds of entire populations. And yet, their fossils are almost non-existent. How could a species so important vanish so completely? It's as if they were scrubbed away from the record. That's the puzzle we're about to unravel. When scientists pieced together the Denisovan story, they noticed something strange. First, they did find a few pieces of evidence, but these were not limited to the Denisovan cave. They found more across Asia, leading us to believe that the Denisovans had a solid stand, and there are probably more remains waiting to be found. But it doesn't end there. The fossils we do have, like the Xiaohe mandible from Tibet and the massive Harbin skull from northeastern China, don't look like scraps from fragile cave dwellers. They look powerful. For example, the Harbin skull is so huge that it earned the nickname Dragon Man. It has a massive cranial cavity, heavy brow ridges, and a robust jaw. One look, and you'd see that these weren't small, delicate humans. They were built like fortresses. What about the Xiaohe jaw? They are twice as thick as a modern one, with molars so large they look like they belong to a different creature altogether. The Denisovan brain case was massive, estimated to be nearly 20% larger than the human brain case. Not just bigger in raw size, but wired in ways we don't fully understand. Could that mean Denisovans weren't just another branch of humanity, but the superior humans history forgot? Now, bigger doesn't always equal smarter, that much is true. But their DNA tells a deeper story. Within it, scientists have found unique neural development pathways. This discovery hints at brains tuned differently from ours. And what might that mean? It suggests Denisovans could process memory faster, recognize patterns more clearly, and think with a kind of efficiency we can only imagine. Picture a mind storing details like a hard drive, recalling them with near photographic accuracy. And here's where science meets myth. Across Asia, legends speak of giants with extraordinary memory and wisdom. That is, beings who guided humans and seemed to command hidden forces. Were these just campfire stories? Or are they traces of Denisovans remembered as more than human? Mainstream science fights this thought, but when you place the evidence together, the skulls, the brain volume, the genetic markers, it's hard not to wonder, did these ancient humans simply outclass us, not only in body but in mind? And if they did, why are they gone? Let's step outside the cave for a moment. Across Asia, oral traditions describe massive beings who once walked among smaller humans. In Tibet, shamans speak of sky-born ancestors who towered over ordinary men. In Mongolia, they tell stories of robust warriors who lived in mountain fortresses. Even the Bible whispers of Nephilim giants wiped out in a cataclysm. You don't think this is a mere coincidence, do you? Now let's layer in the scientific evidence found. Harbin's dragon man skull, the Xiahi jaw, and the random oversized molars discovered in the cave. Add the fact that Denisovans interbred with our ancestors, leaving fragments of their DNA inside us. Suddenly, the traditional tales no longer sound so far-fetched. Have you ever been short of breath hiking a mountain? That's because at high altitudes your oxygen levels plummet. Most humans struggle beyond 10,000 feet, as our blood just can't grab enough oxygen. But did you know it's different for Tibetans? They stroll around at 14,000 feet like it's nothing. Their secret is not in breath training, it's a unique variant present in their DNA. In 2010, a group of researchers led by Rasmus Nielsen discovered something massive. They saw that Tibetans carry a mutation called epochs, which allows blood to process oxygen in thin air. What's shocking is that this gene didn't come from us, normal humans. It came from the Denisovans. Upon further testing on the discovered remains, the same DNA was found on the Denisovans. This means that these mysterious humans had already mastered life at extreme altitudes tens of thousands of years ago. Unbelievable. Picture it. While our ancestors hugged warm valleys, Denisovans climbed icy mountains and thrived in environments we'd normally consider unlivable. To them, Everest-like conditions were no biggie because they could thrive there. In a world where even the best of humans are still struggling to adapt to normal weather conditions, the adaptation level of the Denisovans has trumped the harshest situations. But oxygen wasn't their only superpower. Denisovans also passed down disease resistance genes that still protect us today. Studies show they carried genetic traits to fight the pathogens that plagued early human populations. Indigenous groups in Asia and Oceania inherited these shields, giving them natural resistance to illnesses others couldn't withstand. So while Homo sapiens were wiped out by waves of plagues, Denisovans walked through like it was a mild cold. Their immune system wasn't just good, it was elite. It gets more interesting. Some of these genes are even linked to enhanced responses in modern humans, making us tougher against certain diseases, but also more prone to autoimmune conditions. Sometimes, it seems almost like we inherited too much firepower. Was this just random evolution? Or does it hint at deliberate genetic refinement that started with the Denisovans? And then there's the most enticing possibility, lifespan. Genetic studies reveal Denisovan variants linked to neural resilience and slower cell degradation. In plain terms, the Denisovans may have aged more slowly than we do now. Some researchers speculate Denisovans could live longer, stay sharper, and endure physical extremes without the breakdowns that modern humans face. Combine that with their robust frames, altitude mastery, and pathogen resistance, and you have humans upgraded for endurance. If Denisovans had these superpowers, super lungs, super immunity, maybe even super longevity, then they weren't just our random distant relatives. They were the real deal. A possible super civilization. In 2008, Russian archaeologists were sifting through Denisova cave when they stumbled on something that made jaws drop. A polished chloritolite bracelet. At first glance, it looked like jewelry from a medieval noblewoman. But radiocarbon dating placed it at 40,000 to 70,000 years old. This bracelet wasn't just polished. It had a perfectly drilled hole, likely for a strap or ornament to pass through it. This begs the question: how was such a sophisticated bracelet made in that ancient time? Experts admitted this level of craftsmanship required rotary drilling technology. Yes, the same technology that humans didn't master until thousands of years later. Yet here it was, sitting in Siberia, built by Denisovans. Was this just a piece of decoration? Or can we agree that this is proof that Denisovans had precision engineering tools completely out of place for the Stone Age? If you ask us, it's like finding an iPhone in an Egyptian tomb. The object doesn't just challenge the timeline, it completely shatters it. Then came the discovery that pushed the envelope even further. In 2016, archaeologists found another stunner from the Denisovan cave. They unearthed a 7-centimeter bone needle with a carved eye. If that sounds mundane, brace yourself. Dating back over 50,000 years, the needle earned the reputation of the oldest sewing needle in the world. And it wasn't made by Homo sapiens, it was Denisovan. That means while our ancestors were draping themselves in animal hides, Denisovans were making their clothing with precision tools. Think about it. A needle with an eye requires planning, symmetry, and skill. It also tells of their cultural sophistication. These advanced people were determined not to accept the weather as it came. Instead, they designed clothes to combat it. What does that say about their society? A group organized enough to produce tailored garments must have had roles, skills, and perhaps even trade systems. Doesn't sound like your average caveman, does it? It sounds like a civilization far ahead of its time. Little wonder. History books insist they shouldn't exist. But Denisovans didn't stop at tools. They also left behind ostrich egg shell beads, all carefully crafted and polished. They carved engraved patterns into stone fragments. They shaped pendants from fossilized teeth. Our best guess is that these were symbols. They meant something. Symbolic art implies language, communication, and even spirituality. It's one thing to make a spear to hunt with. It's another to carve a design that speaks to identity, belief, or memory. That kind of expression shows higher order thinking. And this is the kind we once believed that only modern humans were capable of. But with the level of discoveries and technicality we've seen so far, the Denisovans had so much genius. Think about it. Imagine that the whole of humanity disappears today. How long would it take for all evidence of our existence to follow suit? Scientists peg it at a few thousand years. Our formidable skyscrapers would crumble. Plastics would degrade. Even our radioactive waste would fade. If all traces of our seemingly magnificent presence could disappear in a few thousand years, what do you think happened to the civilizations before us? Could we humans just be the latest chapter in a much older story? Seeing that all possible tests to prove the existence of an ancient civilization have been countered, the Silurian hypothesis buddies whipped out their last card: the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum. Also called the PETM for short, this event occurred approximately 56 million years ago. To date, it is known as one of the most extreme global warming events in Earth's history, and for good reason. For thousands of years, global temperatures rose by 5 to 8 degrees Celsius and reached 20 degrees at the North Pole. The warming lasted over 200,000 years, releasing massive amounts of carbon into the atmosphere and causing profound environmental changes. This sparked the big question: since the oldest humans only started existing about 7 million years ago, who or what released so much carbon into the atmosphere enough to cause the PETM? Could it be the same advanced civilization proposed in the Silurian hypothesis? This, here, was Frank and Schmidt's last card. Think about it. In the modern Anthropocene era, industrial human activity has caused a spike in carbon emissions. This has led to non-stop warnings from the government about a potential global warming event. If humans can release as much carbon into the atmosphere as the planet witnessed 56 million years ago, what is the guarantee that the PETM emission was not done by another industrial civilization like us? What if the Silurians lived a life as full as ours? Did they truly cause the PETM? Or that event is not enough proof of an advanced society before us? You guessed right. It isn't. Following Frank and Schmidt's paper, other scientists have since discredited the ancient civilization theory as the cause of the PETM. The first solid reason is that natural processes also match the evidence. The release of carbon could be traced to volcanic activity, methane hydrate destabilization, or even organic carbon release. Secondly, there is no archaeological or fossil evidence. Although we established that geological processes could have wiped away the last pieces of artifacts or fossils left by the Silurians, nothing was found in the Earth's crust corresponding to the PETM period. Lastly, the timing of carbon release during the PETM was far slower than the rate of carbon emissions caused by human activity. If the ancient breed were as advanced as the theory claimed, the carbon emissions rate would be alike. Instead, the rate of carbon release during the PETM resembles that of a natural, gradual process. With these counter-arguments, down went the last card from the founders of the Silurian hypothesis. However, if the PETM event is not enough pointer to an advanced society existing before humans, other indicators still exist. Enter the dinosaurs. For years, the scientific community assumed that dinosaurs were nothing more than ferocious, lumbering creatures with little intelligence. But what if these species are far more intelligent and industrialized than we give them credit for? At first, the focus was on the Stegosaurus. Although gigantic in physique, its brain was so small that the entire species was written off as lacking intelligence. But this changed with recent studies. In 2021, one man dared to look beyond the general appraisal of dinosaurs. Paleontologist Diego Pol researched the Maiasaura species, and the results were astonishing. These species exhibited surprising intelligence and social behavior. For instance, the Maiasaura species returned to the same nesting sites year after year. This not only proved that they had a memory, but also the ability to assess the environment's comfort for their offspring. But this is not all. Pol's research also proved that the Maiasaura communities worked hand in hand to improve their living. While the males protected the nesting females and eggs, younger dinosaurs foraged for food. No doubt, this level of social organization mirrors behaviors seen in modern-day animals. They were advanced in their own way. But if you think the Maiasaura species are the closest bet to the ancient civilization hinted by the Silurian hypothesis, think again. Among all dinosaurs, the Troodon stands out. as the strongest contender for advanced intelligence. For starters, this small bird-like dinosaur had a brain-to-body ratio higher than most of its contemporaries. Add to that, paleontologists deduced that its binocular vision and grasping hands could mean that the species was familiar with complex tasks like cooperative hunting. For an icing on the cake, researchers speculate that if the asteroid impact 66 million years ago had not wiped out the dinosaurs, perhaps the Troodon species might have evolved into more intelligent forms, perhaps even more intelligent than humans. To this effect, paleontologist Dale Russell quickly cooked up the dinosauroid, a theoretical evolution of Troodon into a humanoid-like creature capable of building machines and transforming culture one dinosaur at a time. How bizarre is that? Very bizarre. Although it was a speculative idea, Russell's theory flares up an interesting possibility. Could other undiscovered dinosaur species have reached a higher organizational level beyond that of the Troodon? If dinosaurs like the Troodon showed advanced intelligence, could they have laid the foundation for a civilization by themselves? Again, the lack of direct evidence in the form of tools, buildings, or artifacts does us no good. However, the Silurian hypothesis does not fail to push this idea further. If an advanced dinosaur civilization did exist, its remnants might be screaming for help as faint isotopic signatures in the geological record. It might surprise you, but what if the ancient civilization is an entity we've been overlooking over the years? Over 2 decades ago, a Japanese biologist named Toshituki Nakagaki conducted an experiment that left scientific jaws hanging in shock. The biologist placed a slime mold and a sugar cube in a maze. At first, both entities were at the far ends of the maze. In a few hours, the mold grew its threads through the maze, searching and rerouting itself until it reached the sugar. With that experiment, fungi rivaled the intelligence level of some animals, despite lacking a brain. This poses the question, could fungi have been the footing for an ancient intelligent system? If yes, their civilization might have thrived quietly, leaving no traces to be found. The list goes on. If we dare to explore some more, we might find that even the pyramids and their excellent structures are more of a question than an answer. Although agreed to have been built by the Egyptians, paleontologists beg to differ. Take a look at the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. Now look at Chichen Itza Pyramid. Lastly, the Great Pyramid of Cholula in Mexico. What do you notice? All 3 pyramids were built thousands of years apart and are deduced to be built by the ancient people of each city. However, the recurrent style and patterns of these structures situated oceans apart begs the thought, did an advanced civilization build them even before humans existed? We are just as curious. Once again, the Silurian hypothesis leaves us wondering, was there an ancient industrial civilization before us? In what form did they come? As the PETM, Troodon dinosaurs, the overlooked fungi, or the true architects of the pyramid? More importantly, are these societies all lost to geological processes? Or if we look a bit closer, their chemical fingerprints would call out to us. What do you think?